Welcome to this explainer, the geographic lottery. Have you ever just stopped and wondered why some parts of the world have, well, immense wealth and power, while other regions are caught in deep poverty? Today, we're diving into a massive 13,000-year-old historical detective story to find out exactly why the globe is tilted the way it is today. Okay, let's jump right in by starting with what's famously known as Yali's question. Back in 1972, a New Guinean politician named Yali flat out asked a visiting researcher, "Why is it that you white people developed so much cargo and brought it to New Guinea, but we black people had little cargo of our own?" And by cargo, he basically meant material goods and technology. It's a completely profound question, right? It forces us to figure out why human societies developed at such drastically different speeds. Now, for the longest time, people just assumed the answer had to be biology, but modern evidence completely and utterly disproves that. To actually answer Yali's question, we need to treat world history like a giant onion. We have to peel back the immediate, obvious layers of conquest, what we call proximate causes, like weapons, to find the deep-rooted, ultimate environmental causes hiding right at the center. Let's look at that outer layer of our onion through one really dramatic moment, the collision at Cajamarca in 1532. Picture this. On one side, you've got Francisco Pizarro and just 168 Spanish soldiers. On the other side, the absolute monarch of the Inca Empire, backed by an army of 80,000 men. Despite those literally unbelievable odds, Pizarro captured the emperor in just minutes. So how on earth did they pull that off without losing a single man? Well, the Spanish were holding a devastating hand of those immediate proximate advantages. They had steel swords, armor, domesticated horses, and gunpowder. Plus, they had the maritime tech to get there in the first place, and writing systems to pass along tactical information. But hold on, that just pushes the question back a step, doesn't it? Why did the Spanish have all these world-conquering tools, while the Incas didn't? To find that out, we've got to peel the onion way back to 11,000 BC. The end of the last ice age sparked the very first settled village life. But here's the catch. The transition from hunting and gathering to farming did not happen everywhere at the same time. Certain places, like the Fertile Crescent in the Middle East, got a monumental head start. And that head start essentially drew the starting line for the modern world we live in today. Think of farming as this giant chain reaction that builds global power. Step 1. You cultivate high-calorie food surpluses. Because you have extra food, you no longer have to constantly roam around to survive. This leads to Step 2. Dense, sedentary populations. Suddenly, society can afford Step 3, supporting people who don't farm. Bureaucrats, inventors, and, crucially, soldiers. And that specialization? That is the exact mechanism that builds a technologically advanced empire. But becoming a farming powerhouse wasn't just about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. It required a ridiculous amount of geographic luck. It's perfectly captured by Leo Tolstoy's famous quote known as the Anna Karenina principle. Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Well, the exact same strict rule governs animal domestication. If a wild species fails even one single criteria, whether it's their diet, their temper, or how they breed, they simply cannot be tamed. Which brings us to this absolutely wild number 14. Out of all the 148 large wild mammal species on Earth weighing over 100 pounds, only 14 possessed the specific biological traits you need for domestication. Just 14. Most large mammals, like African zebras or grizzly bears, are either way too aggressive, they panic too easily, or they just flat out refuse to breed in captivity. And this right here is where the lottery part of the geographic lottery really kicks in. Look at this distribution. Eurasia hit the jackpot, getting 13 of those 14 useful species. South America, they got exactly one, the llama. North America, Australia, and Sub-Saharan Africa, 0. So purely by chance, Eurasia was handed an unprecedented advantage when it came to meat production, transportation, and military horsepower. Peeling back another layer, we see that the literal shape of the continents picked the winners and losers. Think about it. Eurasia is laid out on an east-west axis. That means it shares similar climates and day lengths across massive distances. So a crop or an invention from the Middle East could spread super rapidly. On the flip side, the Americas and Africa have a north-south axis. Trying to spread crops there meant moving through constantly changing, radically different climates, which basically acted as a massive roadblock for innovation. Okay, so this agricultural head start gave Eurasia amazing technology.
But it also came with a hidden, terrifying byproduct, one that still affects our immune systems today: the evolution of crowd diseases. By building dense cities and living cheek to jowl with all those domesticated farm animals, humans accidentally forged the deadliest weapons in history.
The evolution of these diseases basically happens in 4 predictable steps. First, an animal pathogen jumps over to a human. Next, the bug mutates so it can jump from human to human. Third, because these farming populations are so packed together, the disease establishes a firm foothold. And finally, those initial waves of epidemics stabilize into everyday kraut diseases. So cattle rinderpest mutated into measles, pigs and ducks gave us the flu, and cattle literally spawned smallpox. Over thousands of years of enduring these plagues, Eurasians gradually built up genetic immunity. But when they started sailing across the oceans, they unknowingly brought these invisible killers with them. Because Native American populations had no native livestock of their own to spawn these diseases, they had absolutely zero prior exposure. And the result? A horrifying 95% mortality rate. Ultimately, germs conquered far more land than swords ever could. So, bringing it all together, the massive gap between the world's haves and have-nots wasn't born from some kind of superior intellect or work ethic. It was quite literally a lucky hand dealt by the environment. The sheer luck of having nearby nutritious plants, access to the few domesticable mammals, an east-west continent shape, and the resulting immunity to livestock diseases. Which leaves us with this final, massive question. How does all this change the way we look at our world right now? Because understanding this ancient environmental lottery isn't just a history lesson. It completely reframes the economic and political inequalities we see today. The shadows of 11,000 BC are still entirely visible in our modern skylines and in the ongoing struggles of developing nations. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this forever changes the way you look at the map of human history.